Welcome back to News in Focus. Now, Trade and Industry Minister Park Starr welcomed the passage of a bill in the U.S. House of Representatives that would renew the African Growth and Opportunity Act for 3 years. But it is uncertain whether South Africa will continue to qualify for AGOA after the bill passes the Senate. Now, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives approved the AGOA Extension Act, which would extend the program until the 31st of December 2028. The vote was 340 to 54. Now, this comes at a time where South Africa and the US's relationship is at an all-time low. And when you listen to the comments coming from a very powerful chairman within the Senate of the US's Foreign Relations Committee, Jim Risch, he labels South Africa as an adversary. This, of course, comes after last week's Navy drills with BRICS nations, China, Russia, and, of course, the one that sticks out, Iran. Joining me now to take the discussion forward, I'd like to welcome Associate Editor of the Daily Maverick and International Relations expert, Brooks Spector. Brooks, always good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's good to be with you, and I hope we can have a useful conversation for you and your viewers.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think let's start off, of course, with AGOA. Look, Brooks, I mean, I guess it's sort of an optimistic nature to have that comment coming from the Trade and Industry Minister, just to keep the optimism there. But as we speak right now, does the US have the appetite to still want to do trade with South Africa?
Well, that will depend a little bit on the way in which the Senate frames its version of this bill. Because remember, it's not a fait accompli if the House of Representatives only passes it. It has to, the Senate has to deal with it, and then the two houses, per the way these things are done in the US, they have to reach an agreement on the actual text, and then and only then does it go to the president for signature. Now, AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, has been established law. It's not a treaty, remember, law in the United States since its passage, 25 years or so ago. And the challenge is that it was allowed to lapse at the end of the year, and it has not been brought forward yet to renew it or replace it or to extend it. And the challenge for South Africa, of course, is that in the meantime, it has engaged in certain kinds of activities which have caught the attention of people in Washington, and not necessarily in a good way. You referred to the joint naval exercise. South Africa's had naval exercises before with China and Russia, and although the last time around with Russia it got some negative attention because it came just as the Russians were invading Ukraine, so that was not an opportune moment. But this time, the inclusion of Iran, even as Iran has been in the middle of massive national protests and a pretty heavy-handed response by the government, that's caught the attention of legislators in the United States, as well as many, many other people. And if the reports are accurate that over 2,000 people have been shot and killed by police and many more have been injured, that provoked in turn a response from Donald Trump that if that continues, then the US would need to, in his words, need to respond appropriately. And what this means is that it's an open question whether or not South Africa's external relations in many areas also will affect the passage and the content of the AGOA legislation. They could, for example, put in, I don't know because I certainly haven't seen a final copy of the final legislation. Nobody has, but they could easily insert a clause which requires South Africa to prove X or Y or Z is or isn't happening, or to insist that South Africa cease and desist on a number of foreign activities, such as its ongoing efforts at the International Court of Justice or its relationship with Iran. Because remember, just in the last couple of days, the U.S. Invoked very high tariffs for any nation that trades with Iran. And of course, sailing naval vessels in association together indicates a fairly high degree of relationship that obviously is not going to be seen favorably in Washington. I've heard lots of people contend that, well, whatever South Africa does is South Africa's foreign affairs business, and other nations can't dictate to it. But the point really is that whatever you pick and choose in your foreign relations inventory of activities have consequences. And the consequences can be very good, or they can be relatively neutral, or in this case, they may well be seriously not good. They can be very negative. And it depends a lot on the audience who receives that information and how they choose to interpret it. So it is unreasonable, in my view, for people to contend that South Africa should be allowed to do whatever it wants, regardless of anybody's criticism, because other countries have the freedom to criticize too.
There's two individuals that I want to touch on, Brooks. The first one is Jamison Greer. He's a U.S. trade representative, and he had mentioned that there are doubts about South Africa's continued participation within the program. I guess for those who don't know who Jamison Greer is he as powerful within probably the U.S. trade setup, really, first of all, to be making comments, and how his supposed take on everything right now could potentially sway Congress to go ahead and not have South Africa participate on a long-term basis?
Well, he's a political appointee, obviously, for the Trump administration. The way things are set up, the U.S. Special Trade Representative has the authority to, how shall we say it, they're responsible for negotiations on trade and related issues between the U.S. and other nations. But other individuals and other institutions in the government also have a say in the matter. Certainly the Department of Commerce, and certainly the Department of State, and to some degree, obviously, the Executive Office of the Presidency, and obviously, as we have been discussing, the various committees of the House, the Senate, and then the whole membership of both houses. And he would not have made statements like that. He would not be winging it without basically a nod of assent by the president or his office, because he's an integral part of the government, and he is the lead person on trade negotiations. But he doesn't have sole authority, and he's not the only person with a what should we say, with a dog in that show. And all these things become subject to tugs and pulls and consequences, and they become also the subject of domestic pressures. I'm going to make up an imaginary example. Supposing country X exports a product, the XYZ vegetable, and it is in fierce competition with American growers of that particular product, there may well be pressure to make sure that there are some exclusions that are carved out, or restrictions or other regulatory matters on any import of that material from country X to the United States, because trade is not only a foreign affairs issue, it's an inherently domestic issue as well. And that's true of any country. That's just as true of the United States as it is of South Africa.
Yeah. We've got about 2 minutes, Brooks, and I want to move from one subcommittee to another, to the Foreign Relations Committee. And Jim Reich, another Republican member, he's called South Africa an adversary, given what we saw last week with those naval drills. His comments there, he's asking for the Trump administration to take stronger actions against Pretoria. He's also, of course, on X, had a go at the ANC government, which of course occupies the international relations portfolio and ministry. How
Being
powerful
broken up or frozen.
Yeah, exactly. And how powerful of a senator is he within this?
Well, Jim Rice is a senator. He's one of two senators from the state of Idaho, which is in the mountain western part of the United States. Um, the challenge is that he's head of that committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is the lead committee in the Senate on all matters that relate to other nations. And he is a very seriously conservative man on all manner of policies. He's not a foreign policy expert per se, but by virtue of his chairmanship, he has a significant say in the matter. And any bill that comes out of the Senate that relates to foreign affairs has to go through his committee and get his assent. Otherwise, it languishes and ultimately doesn't happen. But we should also remember that the Senate, just like the House, is balanced rather precariously between Democrats and Republicans. And so any decision means that if it's a straight party vote, it becomes very, very close. And so there's always a certain amount of discussion, debate, and coalition building at the edges.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Brooks Spector. If we are to read Reuters and they're citing anonymous sources, the US could attack Iran anytime between 24 to 48 hours. Are we getting there to this happening? My conversation continues after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. I'm still in conversation with Brooks Spector, Associate Editor at the Daily Maverick and International Relations Analyst. Now, if we are to take what Reuters has reported, and they've cited anonymous sources, the US military could attack Iran within the next 24 to 48 hours. Of course, what we have seen is that there have been protests that have been happening in Tehran and across Iran, and with reports coming out, done so with quite a heavy hand. If we are to listen to reports, over 2,000 people have been killed during these protests. Brooks, of course, in preparation of this, I'd sent you that link that I had saw from RT News. Are we getting there to this attack happening? Has Donald Trump's hand been pushed into this happening?
I saw that report. I'd seen other versions of that as well. It is possible that that kind of deep concern is being dialed back ever so slightly away from the imminent attack scenario to one of it might happen if scenario. And I say that because the Iranian authorities at some point in the last day or so said that, or it was said that they said, I didn't actually listen to them saying it, but it was indicated that they were no longer going to be shooting at demonstrators per se, and that they probably weren't going to kill kill, I guess.
I wanna. Sorry for getting there, Brooks, because I want to try and find the sort of words that were used. So Arakshi, the foreign minister, had said that there will be no detaining of protesters. Well, Donald Trump had said that there's not going to be assassinations that are there. So, of course, there's two sort of explanations or semantics that are coming with regards to this. So I guess it's for the viewer out there to believe what's happening or believe what is the sort of scenario that is happening within the protests.
Well, first of all, none of us have a really good handle on the nature or the texture of the protests as they are happening now, in part because it's been very hard to get information, and reports are, as a result, extremely limited. But I think what is going on is there is a certain amount of, to use sort of fencing metaphors, there are a fair number of feints or attempts poke at the one or the other rather than necessarily go in for the kill. If Donald Trump says they may not attack if the killing stops and if people aren't executed, maybe, and the Iranian foreign minister says that we're not going to be doing this or that or the other thing, it is possible Donald Trump will claim that as some kind of victory, at least in the temporary sense. At the same time, in U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf, there have been orders to remove non-essential personnel, but that's not unique. That's happened before. And, you can argue that's a very public kind of symbol. Heads up, we are serious as a symbol. It isn't that they're withdrawing everybody. The U.S. has constraints on its action too. And if you read these reports carefully, although America has 11 main aircraft carriers, the large ones that carry 60 to 80 planes and can travel forever with an atomic reactor as its power source. They can't sail forever because the crews need to be replaced and they need breaks and supplies need to be replenished. So there are 11 of these, but there are a number of them that are in ports for maintenance or repairs or just a break for the crew, which means that the Americans are beginning to discuss whether or not they're going to be able to deploy more aircraft carrier units to the Persian Gulf region than are already nearby without drawing down against other regions in which there are potential tensions. Latin America, for example, the Caribbean. So there are constraints on American action too. It isn't as if they have infinite resources to do whatever they please. It is clear that some months ago, we all remember that the U.S. and then followed by the Israelis as well, in tandem, did serious attacks on Iranian nuclear development sites, demonstrating that the Iranian air defense system was basically non-existent as far as dealing with those airstrikes, which should then worry the Iranians, because if the Americans choose to do something, it's obvious that they would be able to achieve it. So everybody is in the process now of trying to sort out who can push whom and where and how, and what domestic issues might influence this. And at the same time, think also that there is significant concern in the Congress about the way in which the American engagement in Venezuela took place without congressional, without any pre-discussion with congressional leaders, and the briefings that will be undertaken have been fairly minimal as well. And then that means that the War Powers Act, which was passed back in 1973, is not being followed in full faith either. So there are concerns, and the polling data says that America may be overextending itself. And one final note, just to throw this in, the MAGA base for Donald Trump, the Make America Great base, his core support group, many of them voted for him because he promised not to engage in large, numerous foreign activities militarily. And here we are looking down the road at one which might well become that.
And of course, he got the FIFA Peace Prize. Let's not forget about that, given to him by Gianni Infantino.
There was that.
Yeah.
It's a terrible statue, but
I mean, there's so much of nuances when it comes to that. Brooks, you mentioned something quite important: congressional approval. Surely, this has been discussed. If there were to be this attack, if we were to take the Reuters report as the gospel, surely there has been discussion with Congress with regards to this, or is Donald Trump just going to say, no, I'm going to continue this?
As I'm trying to indicate, I think I would discount the Reuters report, which I thought was just slightly overwrought at the time. Like any moment now, pay attention, the jets are coming in. And I don't get that feeling. I get the feeling that there is that there are mutual efforts to increase the pressure or the tension, rather than any moment now, heads up, the bombs are coming, because of the way, and let's be plain about it, because of the way Donald Trump has a mercurial kind of relationship with decision making. We will do this, and no, maybe we won't do that, and then we'll do the other thing. And he's got one other crisis on his hands. Of course, he's picked a fight with NATO and Denmark over a very large snow-covered, ice-covered island, Greenland, which is the far north of the United States. And that has gotten the ire of some people in Congress up as well. So all things considered, it's not clear to me that the Trump administration is ready for yet another foreign adventure in the middle of the ones that it's already engaged in, unless something serious happens. What do I mean by serious? Suppose that the Iranian government reverses its course and in a fit of panic, the Revolutionary Guard and the military and the police begin killing demonstrators and do it, rather vociferously and appallingly. That is the kind of thing that might lead, and the government appears to be imminently tottering on its pillar, ready to topple. And that might be the kind of thing that pushes the Trump administration into saying, this is our moment. We can do something about Iran after all. But that's speculation, and I have no source that tells me that.
Brooks, a few days ago, I watched a very ancient video. It was a video or interview that was done with Robert J. Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, and of course, he discussed really the effects that could occur from atomic energy, and here we are, the evolution of it being nuclear. And I guess when we look at and we talk of US and Iran, these are two nuclear powers. I guess for the world, this is a conflict we don't want to see getting out of hand or getting taken serious. And I guess that's what's important, isn't it? That this does not go to a point where it's at a real violent stage.
Well, it's not clear that Iran has nuclear weapons. They've had nuclear developments, whether they have achieved a threshold of fissile material, the kind of, the appropriate uranium or plutonium. It's not clear that they still have that or ever actually had it, in part because of the previous six-power agreement that was in place for some years. It is also not clear to me that Iran's relations with China or Russia would prevent the U.S. from attacking Iran. I mean, you notice that it had very little impact on the previous attack. And I don't see Pakistan, for example, saying, wait a minute, our co-religious brothers are under attack, we must help them, because their power is counterbalanced by India, which is next to them. So I don't see that spilling into a nuclear engagement. And I don't think the U.S. is keen to use nuclear weapons of any type against Iran, because, I'll give you this point. Once that does happen, then the clamps, the restraints, the fences have come down, and it's really hard to tell where things go next. But as a counter to that, since 1945, no nuclear weapon has been used in war, in conflict against anybody. And the number of nuclear capable states has not risen in the last 5 or 6 years. The most recent country that succeeded in developing a nuclear arsenal, of course, was North Korea, which is rather far afield from Iran.
Brooks, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. You take care.
You also. That's Brooks Spector, Associate Editor at the Daily Maverick and International Relations Analyst. Well, that's all we have for you on the News in Focus. I will see you again on Monday. From myself, Ross Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.